Hello and welcome to another video by Flash Jazz Cat, and in this video I'm going to have a look at Candelo Sin's new and yet to be released Atari video upgrade board. This is for composite video and S-video. It does a similar job to the UAV device, but it's a completely original design, and of course it's going to be available in Europe because the main vendor is going to be Lotharic in Poland. And I happen to be working on an 800XL at the moment, which arrived with UAV already fitted in the machine, which I didn't know until I took the lid off. So this provides a perfect opportunity for us to fit the other board as well and test the two, maybe compare the video output quality from the two devices and look at the pros and cons and the differences in the design. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. But before we do that, we're going to have a word from our sponsor, PCBWay. Let's see Paul Allen's board. Oh my god, look at the quality of the plating and the clarity of the silkscreen. Now, PCBWay are experts in PCB prototyping. So if you need a prototype PCB, they're the place to go to. They have 8 years of experience in this stuff. And not only do they offer PCB manufacturing facilities, but they offer 3D printing, CNC machining, a whole host of different services. And they often run special offers and even competitions as well. I think there's an ongoing PCB design competition right now. If you head on down to PCBWay.com, you're going to support them, and in so doing you'll also support me. Alright, so what we've got here is an Atari 800XL. It's an NTSC machine. I'm sorry, I've just been eating a granola bar there. I was a bit peckish. Atari 800XL NTSC was sent over here from America for ultimate 1 megabyte VBXE, and it's going to get was going to get a Covox, but it's now going to get a Pokémax because I had a Pokémax spare, so that's going to go in there as well. So it's going to be quite the machine. Now, when I took the thing apart initially, I was quite surprised to see a UAV board in there. So either the owner or somebody else has put a UAV in here. But the problem was there that it actually blocked the VBXE that's going to go in here. So if we take a closer look at this UAV, right, so here's our UAV board. I'll pop the thing out actually. You'll see it looks a little bit different to your average UAV board because I had to modify it. What was blocking the underneath of the rear of the VBXE was the jumper array here. So you've got two row pin header, and obviously those little jumpers push on depending on what machine the board's going to go into, because the usage of the CD4050 is different on all the different machines. So what I had to do was remove those pins, and I've hardwired the jumpers for the 800XL. And while I'm about it, because I don't like that terminal block that's on these boards when they come. If I know that somebody wants me to install one of these, I always ask them to send the board that comes with no headers on at all, because I prefer to put the DuPont connectors on like this. Obviously I haven't got the housings on because I'm still testing, but it'll become obvious in a minute why I haven't got the housing on it. And if you put this kind of header on, one bonus feature is that you can still see the silk screen underneath, so you can actually see which pin's which. So those two things together, those two changes were sufficient to allow the VBXE, when it's pushed into the antic socket, to just clear the top of here. Obviously I'll put some insulation under it because we've got the 3.3 volt regulator, I think. And I haven't even been in touch with the owner yet about this issue, but it's been resolved anyway, although it was a bit of extra work. It was quite difficult to remove the pin headers because obviously you don't want to damage the board, but it's done anyway and it works. You'll see that we've got Micron DRAM chips here as well. I'll ask him if he wants those replaced. But anyway, we're not at the point of putting VBXE in the machine yet. And after all the failed videos that I've tried to make at the end of last week, I saw an opportunity to look at something new while I was doing the work on this particular computer. And there's another 800XL as well. which actually was bought for £200, 206 quid on eBay. I paid for that on behalf of a client. The prices of these things are just going absolutely insane, especially over here in the UK. 206 quid for a machine that actually has a stuck key, which wasn't mentioned in the listing, but I'm sure I'll be able to fix that. I'm sure that's one thing that does fall within my capabilities, is fixing a stuck key. But anyway, yes, so what we've got here, I'll move this board just so we can have a closer look. Okay, so what we've got here is a new board designed by Candlo Sin, Sebastian Bartkovitz. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. I should know by now, I've known him for over a decade. Never mind. This is a new design. It does a similar job to UAV. I'm going to ask Candle live now what this thing's actually called. But anyway, yes, it's an original design. Obviously, it does the same job basically as UAV. Now, this is a prototype board. You might have actually seen it on the video I made a few weeks back, covering the bumper pack of prototype and pre-production boards that I received from Litharic, Candle via Litharic. So this will output. It's got a quite nice design feature of this one is that it actually outputs composite sync. It's got a dedicated pin for composite sync. So if you, for example, if you are installing VBXE, you've got your composite sync pin rather than having to hook it up to composite video or pin 15 of CD4050 or what have you. And obviously it's got CVBS, composite video, Luma and Chroma. Not necessarily in that order. I think, yes, that is Chroma. I can't read this with the naked eye, or even with the glasses on, actually. They're tiny. And that's your colour input, which is the same spot. The UAV also has that colour pick-off as well. Now, one way this board scores over UAV quite significantly, certainly in the context of the machine I was working on today, which is going to have VBXE installed in it, as I showed you earlier on, is this low profile header here. Now these pins enable the board to sit low enough that this jumper array here completely clears the underside of the VBXE. So if I was going to install this board in this machine, I wouldn't have to remove these jumpers and hardwire the jumper connections because of this socket. Now, I told Candle how pleased I was about this low profile pin header, and that it actually, as far as I can see, accidentally allows the board to sit under the back of the VBXE. And apparently this low profile header is not, or was not, intended to be used on the production boards because of the price. It really would push the cost up a bit. So the question is, would potential customers prefer to see the board with this more expensive low profile pin array, or would they prefer to have something cheaper which uses the standard tall pin array like this one on the UAV? Personally, I think a good option would be to follow in the footsteps of UAV and actually offer this board without the header on at all, and then you can put your own on if you're that way inclined. But yeah, well, let me know in the comments what you think, if you're in the market for something like this, whether you would prefer, because I think if it was actually provided with this low profile header, nobody's going to want to put the tall header on. I can't see a situation where that would be necessary, although I haven't test fitted this board in anything but an 800XL, so maybe there would be situations where you would want it taller, but then again you could just put an extra socket underneath if that were the case. So would you prefer a cheap tall header or this slightly more expensive low profile header on this board? But before you can decide, of course, whether you want one of these things, you need to see how it works. Alright, so after some experimentation with the pot, adjustment pot on the UAV, I discovered that actually, well, it went some way to alleviating a problem. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about this here, and this problem kind of, it comes and goes. There's very limited, well, I'm told by Candle that this is a bandwidth issue, so these pixels here should be full light coloured pixels. You can't even really see them on the camera, but that white, there's a line, there should be a grey line down here. Now this is the UAV anyway, and this problem was much more noticeable on this particular machine, remembering of course this is an NTSC, so the picture's a little bit narrower anyway. It was much more noticeable until I cranked that little adjustment pot. I think it's a potentiometer or a resistor, maybe it's a variable resistor, I don't know, but I cranked it all the way to the left after suspecting for a while that I'd maybe screwed something up when I did those jumpers or what have you. But anyway, the information is there. It's just occasionally we lose a little bit of, especially on stark transitions from light to dark. But nevertheless, this is, I've fixed the white balance and the exposure on this just to try and make sure it doesn't blow out on the camera. So this is the UAV, and this is S-Video. Now I can show you very easily composite video. We'll pull the S-Video cable out. So this is composite video on the UAV. As you can see, there's quite a lot of smearing going on, artifacts, pretty much what you'd expect. This particular font does artifact heavily because of course it's wider than the standard font. I don't really think you can expect much from composite, although I know for a fact that obviously a lot of people are actually stuck with composite video, but certainly on the on this particular display it doesn't look that nice. But S-Video I think looked very good, and to give you an idea of some of what the colour's like, I found this program that Brian wrote. Brian, of course, being the designer of the UAV. So this is the UAV line and artifact test. And of course, since we're using S-Video here, we're not seeing any artifacts at all. If we were to pull the S-Video cable out, we would see artifacts. You can see all the colours that are generated by artifacting fully on display there. So that's composite video on the UAV. Again, it's a shame that I can't switch sources without going around the back and actually unplugging the S-Video lead, unfortunately. Now, one thing I like to demonstrate, because it looks really, really good, just randomly chosen really, is Atari Blast. And if we let that go into its demo mode, we can have a look at the nice colours. And this colour balance and exposure level is actually fairly faithful to what I'm seeing with the naked eye here. It's not too bad at all. So let's wait for it to go into demo mode. Now another thing I'll show you is just the standard blue text screen. So we'll just boot into Sparta-DOS X off the cartridge. Now you can see there's a little bit of, you can sort of see it as kind of a vertical banding effect, but it's not actually very bad. It's not displeasing to the eye, and that could just be my cable. I know that I think it's MyTech. Was it MyTech on the Atari Age forum? I can't remember who's done this, sorry. Just recently was posting about cable shielding and the importance of good quality cables, and it can make quite a bit of difference. And let's face it, I've just got this thing loosely hooked up inside the machine. I haven't even got the connectors inside of the plastic housings or anything, but I think it looks very nice. One more thing we might as well look at actually is a high-res mono display with a lot of detail on it. So we'll run system information, which has got a nice 64 column display, and there we are. I think that looks pretty good. There's some unevenness with the vertical lines, some are thicker than others, and I don't think that's the scaler on this LCD display, because it normally does very, very well with this kind of thing. I think it's got more to do with that problem I mentioned earlier on, to do with bandwidth, whereby depending on where the pixel falls on the horizontal plane, you can see it here where you've got the dots that should really be the same size, they look different. But I mean, it's not bad at all for S-video. I have seen better, usually on PAL displays. I should probably test this on a PAL machine, but I'm not kind of fixed up just at the moment to do so. But anyway, so that's UAV. Okay, so this is Candle's board installed in the machine. As I've said before, the jumper array here, it sits low enough with this low profile pin header on the bottom. It sits low enough to clear the VBXE, as I'll actually demonstrate this to you. So if I pop the VBXE in the socket here and push it home, it clears. There's about, well, no more than a millimetre, but it's the clearance is exactly the same as the UAV clearance is after I'd taken off the jumper pins completely. So no modifications were required to actually get this to fit, but as I said earlier in the video, that's because this pre-production board has that low profile pin header, and it's not envisaged that the production one will have it. So in that case, if that was the case, I would have had to take these off and hardwire the jumpers just to get it to fit under here. So if that's an important consideration, please let the vendor, Litharec, know that you would prefer to have this with the low profile pins on the bottom. Right, so now we've got Candle O'Sin's board in the machine. Now, Candle O'Sin's board is apparently called Spectre.
Allow me to introduce myself.
So if we have a look at the same area we looked at before, where this sort of pie slice has been moved out from the disc, we can still see the vertical line there. It's very, very narrow. Same sort of thing we've got here, but this is after no adjustment whatsoever. This is just the way it comes out of the box. There isn't an adjustment pot on this board, so this is it's a fixed configuration. So this is what you get, and it looks pretty balanced actually. I'm going to show you. So this is S-video. I'm going to show you composite now. Right, so this is composite. It's different to the UAV composite. I'm going to say, I don't know which I prefer actually. I don't know if it's worse. I'll put them side by side in the video, chop it down the middle if I can, to show. It seems to be more blown out a little bit, and there's a lot of green that I wasn't seeing before. All the artifacting on the UAV was red and pink. This has got green, purple. Again, it's not something I would like to look at necessarily. I don't know what it looks like over a CRT. Again, composite, it's not my cup of tea. I would avoid it where possible. So let's go back to S-video. Right, so let's have a look at the UAV test program using Candle's board. And there's not much to choose between the two, to be quite honest. What I'm noticing here is some striping effects, some vertical striping effects here that I didn't really see with the UAV. Other than that, I can't tell the difference. Color saturation, stuff like that, to my eye it looks okay, but there's some unevenness here on the vertical plane with the smoothness of the color, if you like. So let's go back and have a look at Atari Blast and see how it looks on Candle's board. So again, looks nice. This catches my eye, this sort of striping effect down here, if you can see it on the screen. But let's see how it looks when it goes into demo mode. With all these moving images, you can't really notice that quite as much. You can see it on this bottom panel when it turns red, or I can anyway. Okay, much the same kind of story we had really as before. Same thing, narrow unevenness on the vertical plane, narrow pixels, white pixels. Some of them look a bit more grey than other ones. Pretty much indistinguishable, I would have said, from the UAV. Maybe the text has a slightly better definition up here, a little bit, I don't know, it's hard to say. So let's have a look at the plain blue screen display. Right, and again we've got this unevenness. It's far more random than it was with the UAV. It's a similar effect, but there's more variation in the brightness of these vertical stripes. Almost like it's just like the colours slightly overpowering things a bit. I don't know enough about video circuitry to try and diagnose why that is, but it's a little bit, this vertical banding thing is a little bit more aggressive than it is on the UAV. You can see, I can see up here in the corner there's a kind of it's light and then it's dark, 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 and then light again, a light bit down the side here, and then these dark bits. It's not bad. I think the UAV on this particular setup with this screen, this cable, just edges it a little bit in terms of the consistency of solid colour, let's put it that way. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that look at Candle's video upgrade board and the comparison with the UAV. Thank you to I think 1 or 2 new patrons, they'll be on the screen anyway, who've signed up since the last video. I had hoped obviously to maintain a slightly more regular upload schedule on the channel. So some of you might know a couple of weeks ago we had our windows smashed, and that necessitated a lot of activity with the police and the landlord and the local council, etc, etc. It's fixed now and I've installed CCTV. Feel a little bit more comfortable, but not massively so. We do hope to move house fairly shortly. I don't think it's because so much that there's any specific long-running disputes going on or any particular reason why we should have become a target. It might have just been a random attack for all I know. But for quite some time, even before then, we've become completely disenchanted with the neighbourhood that we live in. We don't feel particularly comfortable here. We don't feel particularly contented here. It's very hard to be assured of prolonged peace and quiet so that I can do my work. And the stress of the situation is really, it's affected Deborah, my wife, pretty badly as well. She's been off work for 2 weeks. So, yeah, there isn't really a funny side to this, unless you're 1 or 2 Polish people on Polish forums, of course. You might be able to see the funny side of it then. But anyway, I want to thank you again, well, everybody watching, but particularly the people who delved into their pockets and sent completely unsolicited donations, because it certainly wasn't my intention to try and beg for money when I mentioned what had happened here. The reason I mentioned what happened was because I think the people who support the channel and the people who send me work to do and make donations, etc, etc, I think they deserve to know when disruptions occurred and when the video schedule and the work schedule is going to be disrupted. So I needed to explain why, which I did, and all these spontaneous gestures of support and donations, etc, etc, kind words and messages and comments under the video, it's very, very much appreciated indeed. I mean, we just, especially when I've just lost my mother a couple of months previously, you begin to wonder how much worse things can get. But it's not all downsides. We've got the situation with Lotharic has been, as far as I'm concerned anyway, completely resolved. I'm happy with the terms, so that's good. So hopefully we'll be able to press ahead and continue to deliver interesting and enjoyable products. So I'm going to continue with the firmware, and I'm going to continue fixing and upgrading machines and making videos. But sometimes, when I had a couple of failed projects, well, so far failed anyway, I tried to make videos on Friday and Saturday. That project didn't work out well. I just couldn't get the thing to work. You'll find out what it was. Hopefully I will get the thing to work and I won't spoil the surprise for you. But it was going to be a good video. So I gave up on that one on Saturday and I turned my attention to backup project And that one didn't work out either. I didn't end up with anything that worked there. And it's not that I just want to present things, only the success stories. It's not that at all. The problem is that I've only got room in the workshop and the office here for one job at a time on the desk. And when you start, certain jobs just make a spectacular mess. So I can't just keep that job set up on the desk and dip into it from time to time, and maybe when I've got a spare minute, get the oscilloscope out and start really trying to troubleshoot things. I had such a backlog of work, I had to get this stuff out of the way, so when it didn't work, I just had to clear it away and move on to the next thing. And then the next thing didn't work, but I filmed both, so the footage is sitting there on the server. So if I do manage to get anywhere with these things, I'll finish the videos, or I might feel better about it, and if it's necessary to split them into two halves, fine. I mean, I could have released them as a sort of a two-parter anyway, but the ending was so abrupt when things didn't work properly that it would be difficult to edit into a cohesive video. So anyway, so that's the situation. So I've had a lot of wasted time, and all that did was not produce any videos and push my backlog of work 4 days further down the line. So it's just fortunate that this video I was able to produce that while I'm working on actual work, an upgraded machine that was sent in from America. So I kind of killed two birds with one stone. I'm moving ahead with the backlog of work, and I've got a video out of it, and hopefully enjoyed it. So anyway, that's enough waffle from me. Again, thank you very much indeed for all your support, kind messages, patronage, and I'm going to get on with what I'm doing because I really need to clear the queue out and get rid of some of the boxes here. I can barely get across the room because I only have a very small office. This is a very small one-man operation, and it just doesn't get any easier. So anyway, never mind. Thanks for watching again, and I will see you in the next video. So bye-bye for now.